Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards. Because we are the best. And we're not wizards. No matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for April because it's still April. The year is going so fast. It's almost like there's been a barrage of months and time, just coming into us. And there's only one way to deal with a barrage. You can deal with a barrage by trying to force it and trying to calm it down, or you can embrace that barrage. So how do you embrace a barrage when it comes to board games? Well, you go and you reach out and you see if anybody is involved in some kind of board game barrage, which is why there's a gentleman by the name of Kalen. He's out there. He's doing his board game barrage. He's here to come here and talk to us about how to do a podcast and how to not shout at your
amazing.
Friends.
No. I'm loving this. Barrage. I'm a little worried about the pronunciation of that word, but I think that's
it's a
LA.
barrage.
Yeah.
You're in my house now, son. So,
all right. I will.
Is that barrage? Is it barrage? Is it barrage?
Board game barrage, but it's funny because I'm from California, but one of the hosts on Board Game Barrage is from South Africa. So we constantly are arguing about pronunciation. So,
yes.
like, missile is a word he says, and it's obviously missile.
It's missile.
It's obviously missile.
Obviously missile.
Board game, how did you say it? Barrage?
A barrage.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
See, it could be worse because I'm Scottish, which means I could roll my R's into it as well.
I'd love to
barrage.
Hear that.
It's a barrage. Man. It's like, but would you say garage or garage? Because I say garage.
Garage.
See, I say garage. I'd say I've got to go into the garage and get myself some ice from the ice box. So,
So I don't even know what an ice box is. So we're
it's a fridge freezer.
We're on
of course, you know what an ice box. You're bringing in language into this already, and we've not even started. We better say hello to all the good people out there, Kalen. So hello to everybody who's out there. The reason that we do this is quite simply because I like doing it, And if you like doing something, as long as it's not illegal and hurting people, then you just carry on. And the other reason that we're doing this is because we kind of started talking over Facebook, didn't we? That was a very high octave kind of thing.
I saw that you had been talking, you've been doing this for a while now, done a couple hundred of these.
Yeah.
And I thought that you might have kind of a unique perspective. I think I reached out and just asked some questions about download numbers, how your podcast was going, and kind of, I think I was feeling kind of down at the time, but you were super kind, and so I've been following you ever since.
Yeah, I don't know. I always worry about if somebody comes to me and asks for me for kind of help or information or advice, that I'm not coming across as patronizing, because I'm an old guy and I'm a father as well. So if somebody comes up to me and says, I turn into like Woody Harrelson in the Solo film. I'm kind of like there to try and be your mentor kind of thing. And I worry about kind of coming across some patronizing. But does it matter? Because obviously you went ahead and you've got the board game Barrage, where you kind of meet up and you have big arguments and fights, and sometimes there's crockery. I'm glad it's not on a webcam show, because there'd no doubt there'd be cups and plates and meeples and cardboard kind of flying about the place. Because obviously I'm ridiculously good at having no imagination with regards to the format of the show. We do like to find out about how people got into the hobby in the first place.
Yeah.
So do you want to, I guess, tell us about your history so we can look back at the microphone track of the past, look into the kind of the editing of the present before we blast off into the putting across the social media of the future.
Wow. Well, that's going to be hard to follow.
Your competition, all right? So, this isn't going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy thing.
It's not going to be a friendly conversation.
It's
I got
not.
it.
No. Let's go. No. Top's coming off.
Yeah, I got into board gaming at a young age. My family had a yearly retreat, like a camping trip, and I would play like Scrabble. There was a Scrabble tournament with all the adults there. And played Settlers of Catan there for the first time, and really enjoyed that. Kind of maybe got out of the hobby until college, and then was reintroduced to the hobby through Dominion. Dominion, I think, is kind of a lot of people's second big entryway into the hobby. You got Carcassonne, you've got Dominion, Ticket to Ride. I think these things really have broadened beyond the hobbyist. I have this theory that depending on where you live, you're more or less likely to play board games based on how cold it is outside. So I've lived in New York City, and I've lived in Utah and a couple of other places, and where it's colder, I feel like people are more often playing board games, but that's just a theory. And I mean, I think a lot of the conventions in America are actually in the colder places. I don't know if that's just coincidence, but it doesn't seem like it to me.
I don't think that getting maybe a couple of hundred, people into a room sitting around playing board games is the type of thing you want to do in a really kind of hot place. Because I think that people,
Yes.
I think that people would end up just picking up the board and kind of fanning themselves madly with it. And let's face it, there is sometimes on occasion, somebody needs to have a little bit of a refresh of the old armpits. And, that's not going to be a good time in 30 degrees. Let's kind of face it.
No, that's, it is what they talk about at Gen Con, is that you can kind of smell it, and that's it. It's not a warm place.
It's like a John Carpenter film. What's that? Is that the fog? No, it's Gen Con.
Have you been to Gen Con?
I've not. No. It's one of those dreams. It's kind of like one of those 50 places on the bucket list I want to go before I die. Essen's on there. I'd love to go to Essen. I know people have gone and they've saved up for Gen Con, and it can be pretty expensive. I know people that say that Gen Con is madly busy, like crazily kind of. It's almost like the city can't deal with the amount of Gen Con that goes on at Gen Con nowadays. There's so many people that kind of go there.
Yeah, you're getting a press badge, dude, so I don't know why you're complaining about the money. You're the big leagues.
I'm not getting a press. I don't get a press. I still got to travel. It's not like you get the you don't get the press plane. It's not like they rock up.
Well, maybe you haven't made it yet, but
I've not made it yet. I've not got to shut up and sit down talking about us.
Yeah. So, that's there's a hotel at Gen Con where it's like Tom Bassel, the door on the left. Quentin Smith from Shut Up and Sit Down, and then Board Game Barrage. Our room is at the very, very end of that hallway.
Just because you come up and change the towels, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Doesn't mean you're going to hang about with standing outside the door. But I'll tell you what, I met kind of Rodney Smith for the first time, like just over a month ago now, and I kind of, I got, not starstruck, but the thing that was running through my head was, don't come across like an idiot, don't come across like an idiot, don't come across like an idiot kind of thing. And there was that kind of thing, which is kind of, it's kind of like a strange thing, because they're just like normal, he's like, you can start talking to him. It's like, oh, you are, just a regular kind of normal kind of guy.
Yeah, I think it is weird. I think when Quinn's from Shut Up and Sit Down emailed us, I kind of had the same feeling, like, oh shit, like, what's about to happen?
How many times did you write the response and delete it, and then write the response and delete it?
I'll never tell. That was crowdsourced between 3 people, all 3 hosts.
I bet you were even like worried about, no, put that on a second line. Don't put the spaces between the lines. Don't put the spaces between the lines.
This is a flashback. This is so close to what it actually was.
Was there a font choice? Did you have? Because you've got your marketing head on, and you're like that. There's no way we're sending this in Calibri. Are you joking me? Get that Verdana stuff on right now.
There was no font talk, surprisingly, but yes, we definitely had all 3 of us were kind of deciding how to respond, and also got my girlfriend involved, who's a copywriter, to be like, "Hey, can you do a read over of this for us, please?"
Really? You did, didn't you? That's not a joke.
I totally no, that's not a joke.
You totally did that.
I'm 100% serious.
Wow, that's amazing. But then, what do you do? Because you're about to send it. Because I asked Rodney Smith. I said, "Do you want to come on the show one time?" And he went, "Yeah, I've heard the show. I've listened to the show that you did with Mark, who runs Aircon. So yeah, of course." And I was like, "Ah." And then he went, "Here's my email address. Send me an email." And I was the same thing. I kind of went, do I go for intelligent? Do I go for kind of, friendly but not too friendly with a slight due of respect? Or or do I just mash my face against the keyboard and then just hit send and just see what happens, kind of thing? And is that kind of strange? That kind of strange kind of setup.
This is board games, man. That's what it does to us.
I know. It's kind of strange. How much? I mean, you must be playing kind of quite a lot then, if you are recording a show with the people that you play games with. So, I mean, would you say, are you a collector type of person in terms of the board game type space? I mean, are you the type of guy that you have one of everything but don't necessarily play everything that you have just because of the amount that you have? Or do you have quite a tight rein on kind of what you own alongside kind of what you play?
So I have a little bit of a anti-collection mentality. Mm-hmm. With that said, I do have over 200 games, so let's start there. Mark, one of my co-hosts, has over 500. So that's sort of the difference between us. But we all live in Los Angeles, so it's a little bit challenging storage-wise. But for me, I think that people currently are buying too many Kickstarter games. They're buying, I saw a forum thread on Facebook that was, what Kickstarter Euro game should I look into? Kind of like that was the place that he wanted to start that discussion. And it's just insane to me why would you look at Kickstarter for a Euro game that you won't get for 2 years when there's 7,000 of them on Board Game Geek and we can tell you which 10 are the best, So it was just an odd thing to see that mentality of collecting or being a part of the Kickstarter was fun in a way, but you don't know the quality of that game that you're going to get. So for me, collections, I try to avoid them, to be honest. I met a man once when I was younger who was an older gentleman, and he had 400 or 500 watches. Yeah. And he invited me into his house, and he spent like an hour going over each watch and telling me about them, and and he lived by himself, and it kind of impressed upon me how potentially it brought him happiness. So I don't want to project onto him, but he was also alone and by himself, and so excited to talk to anyone who would talk to him about his watches, and it kind of freaked me out. In a way that if I'm deciding should I collect things or should I not, Kalen, me as myself, I don't think collecting things is the right mentality. So I try to be careful with board games. I cull board games a lot. I get rid of probably 10 or more a month at this current time.
Do you do you have a strict routine in terms of you get something in, you make sure it's played as quickly as possible? And then from there, do you have like a decision where you're kind of like, right, okay, this definitely has to go in the keep pile. This is in, we'll give it another try pile. And then this one is, this one can go anywhere. It doesn't matter as long as it's not here, it can go anywhere else at all.
Yeah, I have a shelf of shame. And that's another one. People have started calling that a shelf of opportunity. Which I think I don't agree with at all. But the Shelf of Shame has over 30 games on it right now, so that's pretty shameful.
That is.
We get sent enough review copies now that I don't feel as bad, because sometimes it's not a game I even want. And so trying to decide what to do with that. But then I also have a shelf of games that I want to try one more time before deciding. It's almost like Purgatory or the Halfway House, where they're halfway out of my collection. And I probably have 30 or 40 games in that section. And then I just have the general collection.
What's been turning your head at the moment then?
I was just looking. My collection here is all to my right in my calyx. I am a true board gamer after all.
I mean, I think you get your membership revoked if you don't have at least one calyx in your possession. Even if you're not using it for board games, as long as you have a calyx in your possession, then you're fine.
Yes,
it's kind of like one of those kind of things.
Your IKEA membership card is needed. Yeah,
actually, I have heard people that that pass around packaging from calyx shelving, so in case the inspectors come round, they can say, "Look, I have one somewhere, but here's the packaging to prove that I kind of have it." But what I mean, at the moment, is there anything that you're going to go, yeah, I want to get this back to the table again. I was really impressed with it. It should be, a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we just did a Dune book club for the sci-fi novel. So all the hosts of Board Game Barrage read the whole book and then had a 6-player Dune game about 2 weeks ago. And I am just dying to play it again. So this is the game that came out in the 70s. From the makers of Cosmic Encounter. So I have a print and play version. There was a company that you could just pay for a print and play of it.
Yeah.
It was just announced that it's going to be reprinted by Gale Force 9.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah.
And
I heard that.
It's such a unique, wacky game that I just don't know how the market's going to accept it, but I really, really liked it. Had a really great time.
Did you play Rex at all?
So I actually haven't. I grew up on Dune, and so when Rex came out, I kind of did the whole poo-poo it, just even though I'd never played it. I would like to try Rex now, so I'll probably seek out a copy just to see the difference between them. Does anyone have love for Twilight Imperium, right? For the Space Lions?
No, I mean, Twilight Imperium seems to be one of these things that everybody kind of talks about, but I've not actually seen anybody play, or I don't know of anybody personally who's sat down and had a game of it. I played Rex, but Twilight Imperium to me seems to be one of these grail games that people say, yeah, Twilight Imperium, I've got it. And then the folk that I've spoken to that have had it haven't actually managed to get it to the table, because just for me, asking me to commit kind of like 8 hours of my life to sitting at a table is just potentially a little bit too much, even like, because I could play a couple of other board games in that place. So I don't know. I'd be interested.
You should play it once. I think once is probably all you'll ever need. I think that modern design has done a lot to condense and shorten that type of gameplay. So the depth just isn't there for the length of time that it takes, in my opinion.
So what kind of games are you kind of into? I mean, is there a particular game that you will, without a shadow of a doubt, get to the table if somebody kind of gives you the kind of the option? I mean,
I'm sorry, I keep cutting. It's funny because on our podcast we just shout over each other, and that kind of works, Well,
I can do that as well if you want to.
No.
I mean, it's fine.
I don't.
You can just.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to be the rude American boy. But I might be no matter what I do.
That's fine. I mean, that's completely acceptable. I mean, it's about time I was put in my place. So, and normally we all just sit about and we have like signals to say, now you talk, and then they signal back and say, now you talk, and that's how that works. But if you want to talk over me,
wait, you use signals? Are we supposed to be signaling
each
other? Oh, I believed you for a second.
That was brilliant. It was like that. I've got one, Jimmy. Yeah. I've got one. I'm just reeling him in. He's back again. So, what kind of games do you like to play then?
I'm. To me, if a game is not interactive in a very direct way, I lose interest. So a lot of the modern puzzly Euro games, parallel play, where everyone's kind of adjacent to each other but not interacting, feels antithetical to what board games are for me. Some games that are in my like top game collection, like Archipelago, is a game that's a semi-cooperative hidden trader game. So what I love about that is that you're all playing a kind of Euro game about settling this area and exploring the archipelago, but only one player is going to win. And so there are these crises that come up, and during those crises, everyone has to contribute pineapples. And if you don't get enough pineapples, the game ends and everyone loses. And so what it means is that everyone has to feel like they can win in order to continue the game, but the player who's in first place is who you're going to lean on to provide those pineapples. Now, that's confounded a little bit further by the fact that in 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 2 games, there's a hidden traitor who wants the game to end, but you don't know if there's a hidden traitor or not. So it leads to all this brilliant... The game is between the lines of the rules of the game are the framework, and then where the game actually happens is when you say, well, I'm sorry, I don't have any fish, so I can't help with this crisis, even though you have a ton. And that interactivity in Archipelago is just unmatched for me. So that's one of my favorite highly interactive games.
Have you played Dead of Winter?
Yeah, absolutely. Dead of Winter is not one of my personal favorites. I think I like Dead of Winter. I think the story of it gets in the way, and some of the objectives feel a little clunky to me compared to Archipelago. It's like on your last turn, someone will be like, all right, now I need to go, collect this item in order to win my victory condition. But it's definitely in the same realm. That's the same type of thinking that it does. I think semi-cooperative is a very fragile game to balance, and I don't think many have done it right. I think Dead of Winter is definitely on the list of doing it right, but for some reason it's just never been. I think the zombie thing I'm over. We get it. It's about humanity. It's not about the zombies. I'm tired of that.
Yeah, I see a lot of people kind of saying that nowadays, that not necessarily having another we don't need another zombie game. We don't need another zombie film. We don't need anything along those lines. But Dead of Winter's a funny one because it can either play that everybody tries to help each other all the time, or depending on the type of group, if you played it a couple of times, then you can kind of bring in the betrayal mechanic. But I think the first couple of times I play, I don't think anybody wants to bother with that because it can be a difficult one to play, to try and be kind of difficult. And I think most people try to want to kind of play a game so they're kind of winning together, which is always kind of enjoyable. What about the kind of like the shorter, kind of quicker games out there? Have you kind of ventured into kind of like your Keyforges and things like that?
I have not. I played Keyforge once or twice. I love the idea behind it, but I was a little the decision space, right, of choosing one of 3 of the factions and getting to do all the actions related to that. I thought was really brilliant.
Yeah.
But the decks that we got from Fantasy Flight just did not seem very balanced. So we played 2 or 3 games, and one of the decks just won every game, and it kind of goes against my idea of collections. In a sense, I think it's smart that you can buy 2, decks and play, and that's great. But if you want to be good, if you want to get good, it's actually even more predatory than Magic the Gathering because you have to buy a new deck. If there are 3 cards in your deck that aren't good enough, in order to get a better deck, you just have to buy a whole new one. And I'm not sure where I'm at on that business model.
Yeah, I've seen it being. It's really funny because around about Christmas time, I think everybody that I knew was kind of playing it, and it was quite usual for a couple of people at the game group that I go to. They were mad playing for it. They had gone as far as getting kind of like custom tokens, and they were using kind of almost beading kind of jewelry to represent represent tokens and things like that as well. I've not seen it kind of played for a while, and I don't know if people are waiting for the second iteration, which is going to be coming out kind of quite soon. I don't know if it's gonna. I don't know. I as I say, it's kind of like did you get to see what Discover looked like, which was their other kind of random thing.
I have not played Discover. I'd be interested in it, but I think there's this sort of anti-hype or hype train that happens, and Discover definitely got hit with the anti-hype train with some bad reviews.
Got tied to the tracks and then kind of left to kind of get run over.
Yeah. I mean, I think that innovation is so cool, and just on Keyforge, the last bit is like, if you and I and a couple of other bros went down to the game store and each bought a deck, I feel like you could have a fun 3 or 4 hours just playing right then and there, with that deck. And so it replicates the magic, like sealed, like draft or some of those pre-release nights that they do. And so I think that's really smart, and probably how I might do that when the second set of Keyforge comes out. But in terms of like playing it as a lifestyle game, that's where I kind of draw the line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you quite kind of focused on, do you find out a lot about games before you kind of jump in? Because you sound like you got a fairly sensible head on your shoulders in terms of maybe not being led by the passion and the hype of a game, but you sound like the type of person that goes in and kind of analyzes what's behind the game, and am I gonna enjoy this kind of game before you kind of jump in? Because you're fairly dismissive about kind of Kickstarter, and the whole thing about Kickstarter is obviously the fear of missing out. So I mean, when you're deciding on a game, are you the type of guy that will like go through kind of playthroughs and stuff like that? Or if you're going through review copies, if it's not when you read the rule book, you're like kind of like, regardless of what everybody else has said, you're just like, nah, this isn't for me. I'm not really going to be able to kind of commit to this kind of playing it properly.
Yeah, I think just to be clear, I have backed probably over 40 Kickstarter campaigns, so I'm not. I'm lucky enough to have enough disposable income that's okay, I guess. Yeah. I would say. But when I'm, one of the rules, probably my biggest rule, is that I believe that a rule set should be as short as possible to deliver a maximally enjoyable experience. So, and what that means is a game like Battlestar Galactica, right, has a ton of rules, has a ton of edge cases and little things, but it's trying to make you feel like you're on the show Battlestar Galactica. And so in that sense, it succeeds. But a lot of what I feel like we're seeing in the design space is just, let's eat up a bunch of different mechanisms and then vomit out another version of that. And so I'm not very good at reading rule books and understanding how that will play. So I'll always play anything. I think that's definitely one of my rules. We played a Euro game this past week that I probably knew I wasn't going to love, Great Western Trail. Super popular game right now. Yeah,
people fight bears for that kind of game. It's like, I don't like Great Western Trail. You said, what about my family? No, I said I didn't like Great Western Trail. What is it you said about my brother? I said nothing. I said I didn't like a board game. Calm down,
Yeah. And Great Western Trail is not a game that I need to own, but there are decisions in it that it's not interactive enough. But I think, it did something so interesting, right? And probably what we'll talk about on our upcoming podcast episode is instead of having you fulfill like contracts and objectives on a whole game sense in like 2 hours or 3 hours, you're making the route over and over again, and you're going through the whole trail. And what that does is it makes the game a little bit more tactical, as opposed to that strategy that you have to plan out for 3 hours, because I'm not good enough at that strategy where the strategy you make on turn 1 is the same at the end of a 3-hour game. And so I thought Great Western Trail reduced analysis paralysis. It did a lot of smart things, and it made for a really snappy, like heavy Euro experience. So I thought that was really cool. So, there are always things that I feel like I can talk about a game, even if I don't ultimately think it's for my collection or for my taste.
Mm-hmm. What was the driving force behind kind of putting something out there in the first place in terms of the kind of the podcast? I mean, you sound like you've got a lot to say.
Yeah.
I mean that in the kindest possible way, with just a slight hint of insult, but not too much.
Perfect.
Maybe about 3%. But were you finding you were having the discussions all the time, and then did one of you kind of turn around and just say, "Do you know what? We should just record this and just put it out there"?
That's almost exactly it. And I think I think what makes my hyper derogatory comments palatable is that I'm 1/3 of the podcast. So
I got the worst bit. Is this what you're saying?
You got the most controversial. Let's be
fine.
very, very specific about that. So it frequently devolves into a 2 versus 1, where it's me defending a position that they don't agree with, and then we argue about that on the show. I think for me, there is overall a lack of not critical thinking, but the established format is, if you're describing a game, this game is good for small children who like aquariums. 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it's like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's my trigger word, sorry, 7 out of 10. I used to review video games, so if somebody says to me, 7 out of 10. If you'd followed that up with, it's great for anybody who's a fan of the genre. It might not be suitable for everyone. This table's getting flipped.
Right.
You just be spinning in the room kind of thing.
And I just think that there's this, like, there's money on the line, man, And so people say, like, well, how big should your collection be? And, I have a whole episode where we talked about this. And I think the answer is really how much you can afford. And so I have all these, like, weird, I think that there are games and then there are better games. And I don't think that the board game media in general does a good enough job delineating which of those two it is. It's very insular. It's very, the people are volunteering at the publishers' booths, the media personalities, and helping them run their booths in exchange for free admission to conventions. I just, people are spending their money and they want to know what's best. And I feel like Board Game Barrage does a good job of being very straightforward about what we like and what we think is good.
Yeah, I think it's just the maturity of the kind of the media. I've seen a couple of discussions recently. I've seen kind of James Hudson talking about people selling on prototypes.
Yeah.
And it kind of turned out that, somebody had kind of pitched one up at a garage sale.
Was there an ice box, man? Was there an ice box?
There were several.
The garage?
There were several ice boxes in the garage.
That's weird.
No, but yeah, but then there was the other side of it as well, where people were talking about somebody was actually confusing previews with reviews, and talking about kind of like quality of previews and things like that, and really kind of mixing the whole thing up, and kind of we're talking about, are we heading for a kind of a bubble bursting because of the paid review thing, in which I had a whole pile of content creators running up and saying paid reviews? Who does paid reviews kind of thing? And I see where you're coming from with the kind of, how do you review a game of somebody that you kind of know quite well, that you've ended up getting to know as you go up the kind of the ladder? Because look at it this way, I can't I could probably email Stephen Bonacore tomorrow, even though he doesn't like me because I've started secretly filming a series of shows where I do impressions of Stephen Bonacore. And his interactions with Jamie Stegmaier. And, it's never ever going to happen because I'm never going to release it because he would have me killed. But in order for me to get to the point where I can maybe speak to Stronghold Games, there's going to be a relationship kind of built. Yeah?
Yep.
I've got to prove myself as an audience. I've got to prove myself as out there, which, like it or lump it, you're going to have to go out there. You're going to have to get to know people. You're going to have to interact with people in order to kind of go up the ladder. So you're going to end up having conversations with Stronghold Games. You might bump into them at a conference and have a 10-minute conversation with them. Does that mean you're starting to be in the lines of colluding with somebody? As you're building up a relationship in order to, so that when you contact them when they're doing the next terraforming, whatever they're doing, terraforming Uranus.
Yes. Perfect.
Do you like the, yeah. Yeah, it's unspoken. We'll not go there. But, You can then rock up and say, right, okay, I'm interested in doing a preview of this game. They'll say, yeah, we know you. Of course you're going to get a preview. You're already on the kind of the list because we met at Gen Con. We met at Origins. We met when we were at the UK Games Expo kind of thing. And this is the kind of the sticky wicket where we are at the moment with the games industry because the distance between media content creators and the actual industry itself, which is a strange one.
I think... there's just no money in it, right? Board Game Barrage is decently popular. It's not one of the top 10, but it comes up in discussions about people's favorite board game podcasts. But we've never made $1, and I don't know that we ever will. To be honest, we lose money, so it's a passion thing, and that without the money, then you rely on the publishers to give you review copies to allow you to talk about games. I think. I have one specific story or anecdote related to this. I'm a huge fan of Cthulhu Wars, which is an asymmetric dudes on a map, amazing minis heavy. It's a $200 game. It's Sandy Peterson is a very famous designer. He worked on Age of Empires 2, very well known within the community, and he recently reached out and had us do a preview of Hyperspace. His new big 4X game on Kickstarter. Yeah. And to tell you, this felt like Christmas to me. I was so excited to get this game. I was, it's a 2-hour 4X game with a ton of minis, spaceships. I love Cthulhu Wars and I played it for the first time and really did not like it. I really did not like it. And I played it a couple more times and really did not like it. And to be honest, it was heartbreaking, honestly, personally, because, I was already planning the Kickstarter video that I was going to be making, hyping it up because I had my checkbook out for the all-in pledge and that was $300. And and figuring out how to navigate that was way harder than I thought it would be. And I have one of the only negative reviews of it currently on Board Game Geek, where I talked about it on the podcast. I was authentic to specifically what I didn't dislike. And the recommend is, hey, if you're into this, just buy Cthulhu Wars. It's better. But that's a hard thing for a board game company, a publisher, and I didn't know, and I still don't know if I did it right. And that's on a small scale, right? And as I've met Sandy one time, but there are these board game personalities and people who were all at the cons together every time. So it's a tough challenge. And I think no one can be objective, is the real answer.
I think unless you're deciding you're not going to give an opinion kind of at all. You've got, as I say, going back to kind of like Rodney Smith. What he's famous for is not giving an opinion. Here's the game, this is how you play it. Let's move everything off to the table, or the side of the table, so you'll never ever see it again, and I'll bring it on as I need it kind of thing. And then he'll say, do you like your table, Rodney? I'm not telling you that. I'm not going to tell you if I like my table. Because I was going to tell, I was kind of like, when I met him at AirCon, I said, do you want a sweet? He said, I'd love a sweet. I says, any one of these you like? And he says, I could show you how to unwrap the sweet, but I'm certainly not going to tell you, which one's
he said that to you?
My favorite. No, he didn't.
Oh, well, come on. You're too quick with these. I'm believing
it. It's just like, this is easy. It's like, I don't know. It's, but I'm, as I say, it's a kind of like, we're in a kind of a difficult place. But on the other side of it, as I keep kind of worrying about, is do we want to go the same route as the video game industry? Where it appears that the video game industry have got the review industry by the balls. Because it's a case of, I've seen video game review companies saying, oh, we've not got a review of this game because they've been put on the second list, so they don't get the code before the game release. They get the code on the day the game releases, so they can never have the review, so they're never going to get the traffic. And that's what I'm thinking about. Do we want the board game company, the board game critical side of the industry, to end up being kind of held to ransom by PR? Do you know what I mean? Oh, you didn't like the next phase of Keyforge? Well, screw you. You're not, you see that nice little expansion of Legion that you reviewed the first thing I read, Legion? You're not getting that anymore because you stiffed us over when it came to kind of like Keyforge kind of thing. Yeah,
and I don't want to overstate. I certainly don't want to say that we're, Board Game Barrage is the only one that's telling the truth. I do think there are highlights within the industry. I think what you have also is that as the technology makes it easier to have an opinion in a podcast or in a video, you have more people entering that space. And so the barrier of entry is very low. So you have a lot of people who are not used to any kind of journalistic anything who are now, putting their opinion on YouTube and trying to post it on Reddit. And, that's what creates stuff like this too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, as I say, and there are, there are people that are looking to be put on the review panel so they can get the review copies.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, like Board Game Barrage started as an Instagram account, okay? Actually, I started an Instagram account called Board Game Barrage a couple years ago thinking that I could get review copies. I'll be completely honest, and honestly, it's just not the amount of hassle and work that you go through. I don't think receiving the review copy is what biases a reviewer. Honestly, because once you're established, you're getting so many review copies that it doesn't even matter. That's not the factor. The factor is the personal relationships behind it, and not wanting. You have your favorite designer ever who now knows you like his games or her games, and he's sending you stuff, so that you can check it out. And if you like their first game but not their second game, how do you deal with that? And then they ask you, well, what did you think of it? And it's hard to be critical.
Was that a difficult conversation? I mean, have you had that conversation?
I have, and we're constantly, ongoing with conversations like that with designers, publishers, and I think, I don't know. I think at some point someone is going to get mad at us for being too honest with our own personal opinions.
I don't know. I mean, going back to Shut Up and Sit Down, and obviously going back up the octave again, they have got one thing which I know a lot of review organisations kind of don't have, or media people, is they've got the kind of the complete independence, because they don't rely on any particular company to fund to fund the show, to fund the organisation. That they're completely funded by the audience that reads their stuff, basically. They have, they don't even engage in Patreon. I mean, they don't even engage on a Kickstarter. It's like every year they kind of like, they have like a fundraiser that you can pay in order to be part of that. And I think because of that allows them to be almost kind of scathing to games that they don't like. It allows them that kind of freedom to be able to say, look, we didn't like Seafall. I like the components. I thought it was interesting as a game. Buy the game, take the components apart, and look at what a game design could be, kind of thing. And they can be kind of quite I mean, I listened to them on one of their podcasts talking about Wingspan, and they were just like, it's a game. It's really, really nice. It's really, really lovely. It's not for us. We thought it was kind of middle of the road kind of thing. And it's kind of like, I guess, is the integrity, because they've got the money behind them that if somebody came around and said, you're not getting reviews copies from us, it's like, well, it's fine. I can go out and get, I can go out and buy another copy, in 3 weeks' time when it is officially released, and we can still do a review and we'll still get 25,000 people kind of viewing it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think Shut Up and Sit Down is definitely one of the ones I sort of mentioned earlier. I think, for example, I recently talked critically about Architects of the West Kingdom, which is a huge darling, and someone sent me a message because someone on Twitter had said, oh my God, I hate it when people talk bad about games they don't understand, unsubscribing from their podcast, I'm done with them. And they were talking about us.
Wow.
So I think that Shut Up and Sit Down also has a little bit of a halo effect because they sort of have the biggest hammer in the whole space, right? Maybe the second biggest or the biggest hammer. So they're the big boys. So they have a little bit of protection to be a little bit more critical, I think. But yeah. I agree. It does come from the way in which they fund their show, because some of the other alternatives, you get to back their Kickstarter, but then they give you all these promos for games. So it's like, back the Kickstarter and then you'll get a promo for Terraforming Mars. And that's super insular. That's all feeding on itself. It's weird stuff.
Yeah, kind of help us create content and be critical, but here's a whole group of free stuff that we've got from developers that we're going to be critical of during the year. Thanks very much.
Here's 2,000 promo copies of this, card expansion that everybody's going to want, and we'll give it to you for free. Hey.
That's just slightly controversial, Kalen. Because that is kind of like we did a Kickstarter. I didn't do promo copies because I asked, I don't think we're big enough to rock up. I've had so many people on the show that I could probably approach a lot of people and say, could you give us a promo, and we'd get it. But we decided to go down the route of giving people biscuits instead, cookies, basically, gluten-free ones, which are they're going out basically, by the time people read this, they should actually all be on their way to our fulfillment centres. But I didn't want to go down the promo route because I wasn't confident in approaching people and asking them for it. And then if you go around and ask people for it and you get like 2, then I'd look like an idiot. Here's my 2 promo cards.
Just make them, they gotta be good ones, right? Like Gloomhaven and...
Yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah, promo copies of Gloomhaven for everyone who kickstarts. I didn't know you did a Kickstarter. Did that work out well for you?
Yeah, we triple funded. But I didn't go for a massive amount. I ended up with it was for the laptop that I'm looking at now. It was to go to a couple of conventions. It was just to see. I didn't even think it was going to be kind of like a big thing. It ended up being like a nice little additional thing that got me some much better equipment that I needed to improve the audio quality of the show, not necessarily the audio, the content quality of the show.
I'm a direct result of your Kickstarter, right? You've upgraded your... Yeah, perfect.
Definitely, I went for people who can't pronounce the name of their own show properly.
Well, you got them.
So I definitely had to kind of get you involved in the show, because I went, who can I get? And I was like, we'll get those the Barrage boys. We'll get them on the show. That'll be kind of fantastic. As I say, you talked about kind of like just getting it together and kind of starting to kind of chat and then kind of putting things out there. With the name, how many iterations of the name did you go through? Did you go for how many different names did you have with the word board in it? How many different names did you have the word meeple in it?
Yeah, I think looking back, I may have wanted to remove the word board game from the name. I went through a big list of interesting B words because I like the idea of board game and then one word with B. But obviously, a bunch of other people have done that with Board Game Blitz. I'm spacing, but there's a lot of them. I think I like where we've arrived. Barrage has sort of that military thing to it, and we have a little motif where we're each a different color tank. So our logo is the 3 tanks, and so like
you're the red one, aren't you?
I am the red one, the aggressive one. And so
I would have never been able to tell by the way you've spoken tonight. I would have said he's definitely, he's the fluffy kind of kitten one,
kind-hearted. Yeah, I So I like the name. I'm cool with it. I think there is a board game called Barrage, and that's wrecking havoc on our search engine optimization right now. Because if you search for Barrage board game, that game comes up, and I'm like, God damn it.
Have you thought about actually approaching them and say, listen, guys, I know you think your traffic's gone up.
But that's my traffic that you're stealing.
That's actually my. Could you send me some of that traffic? Could you put a page on your site saying you're coming for this controversial shouty podcast, and you've got this game, and said, is it a good game? Have you played it?
I have not played it. So maybe I should. That would be a kind of fun meta episode to talk about Barrage on the board game Barrage. The board game Barrage on the Board Game Barrage podcast.
That would be cool. What happens if it was it could be the best game ever. And then you could end up getting sponsored by them. And then you...
I think we've talked about the dangers of sponsorship, but yes, a retheme of the Barrage game using our tanks and likenesses, yes. I think you'd be totally...
I think that should definitely kind of be something that's been happening. How have you found the marketing of... Because you mentioned about, obviously, everybody's got a podcast. That's kind of an ongoing joke kind of thing in the industry. Is like, I saw IDW put a post up on Facebook saying, if anybody's doing podcasts or media creators and want to get on a review list, then please, get in contact, add yourself on the, get in contact, send us a direct message and we'll get you added on. And there was about 170 comments. And all these names that I've never even ever heard of in my kind of life. In terms of you kind of getting the name out there, getting the word out there and people kind of listening, is it more and more difficult to do that? Or, obviously, did you find it quite an easy thing to kind of get people kind of interested in what you were doing?
No, I think, after 5 episodes, when we hit 100 downloads on one episode, I was so excited. I was... beyond excited, and obviously that was super small numbers at the time. I think authentically I post on Reddit, on the board game subreddit, every day, just at work,
right?
So it was kind of easy because that becomes a source of marketing, quote unquote. But really, I just like talking to people about board games, and so we talk to people there a lot. We've since started a Discord, which is like a chat room service. So we have almost 200 people in there, and at any one time, there's 30 or 35 people online at any time just talking to us about board games. And I think it's about building a community of people, and that sounds like bullshit. That sounds like stuff I hear at work. But I think you have like Heavy Cardboard, who did such a good job of saying all heavy gamers come and talk with us. And so we have a unique perspective on the hobby, and I feel like we're gathering kind of our group, and hopefully that gets bigger. And marketing is hard. I think that the advice, and not that I'm, I honestly, I imagine half the people who listen to this won't even know what the Board Game Barrage podcast is. So I wouldn't say we're super well known, but I will say that I think that people who just put out these YouTube videos, video after video, and instead of having a care for the marketing behind it or how often they want to post and the quality of that, we were very big believers on make it professional from the very beginning, as professional as we knew how to make it, and then don't deviate. So, our weekly podcast has come out every week for over a year now. We haven't missed a week. And that's important to us. And that, that's not important to different kinds of podcasts, but for us, it's a weekly board game podcast, and we try really hard not to digress into what we're talking about now. We're very intentional about what makes the episode, and we edit out things that we don't think should make the episode. So I think it's about having a product that you believe in, and then organically just interacting with the community. But I mean, the more there are, the harder it is. So, and the more established giants, it's hard, and sometimes it's just luck whether you have success or not. And one of our biggest successes so far is having Quinns of Shut Up and Sit Down say, "Hey, I listened to this podcast," and that's a big social validation, I suppose.
And it can help with the numbers, because people find it difficult to make a decision, which is why we exist in the first place. People want somebody like Matt Lees they want to watch a 15-minute video on Matt Lees to reinforce the fact that they were never ever going to buy this game, and they're really glad that Matt doesn't like it. And they want to watch another video with like Quinn's doing a video and saying how he really, really loves this game, because that justifies to them sticking, their hand in their back pocket and putting $50 down on this particular kind of game. People aren't very, very good at kind of making decisions, and sometimes it's the whole fear of missing out. If somebody says, "Oh, I like this, I'll listen to it," then other people are like, "Well, I better jump on and kind of listen to it as well." And they're very, very kind of strong influences. I remember was it a couple of years ago they did just a news article on Champions of the Wild, which is like it's an interactive kind of card game. You basically are pretending that you're at an Animal Olympics, and you've got different events based on that. And I think the news article basically said, "We've played a preview copy of this for the Kickstarter, and we really, really like it." And basically, it went from kind of floating to being kind of just barely starting off in their funding and Kickstarter, to being funded, overfunded, to the point that they've now done a second version of the game on their second Kickstarter. They've managed to kind of, so in some ways it's going to help them. It's going to help them build the business. I'm conscious we're doing the job of being the advertising executive PR team for Shut Up and Sit Down, and we're not doing anything about your good selves. So if people were listening along tonight and they wanted to know what they can expect if they tune in, because obviously so far they've heard arguing, shouting, differences of opinion, and things like that. But if they decided to tune in, what could they expect if they rocked up?
Yeah, I mean, I think the format is fairly straightforward and industry wide. It's essentially what we've been playing over the past couple of weeks together, and then we talk about. We usually read a review because we have people write the most ridiculous reviews of our podcast. Because we have a tracker on our website for which tank you like the best. And so when you review us, if you tell which tank you like the best, we actually add that to our website. So it spurs this fight. But then we move on to kind of a featured topic. And I will say one of the things that we like to do is talk about things that lean a little bit more philosophical than just specifically related to mechanisms. So, our topic on collections really ended up being a topic about, the dangers of owning objects and how those objects define you. We had a conversation about gateway games, and that conversation actually ended up being more about how you shouldn't be trying to convince others. It's not what are the best gateway games, because we'll give you those gateway games and we'll talk about them, but then we'll also talk about like how you should probably find board game friends and not try to convert. If you invite someone over for game night with beer, they're not coming over to be converted to play Great Western Trail, right? No, they just want to hang out and being honest with your intentions and sort of the philosophical layer underneath that. We argue a lot about king making and how. What is your purpose and what is the social contract that you enter into when you play a game? I think that if you're put off by any of my opinions, Mark, the green take, is much more of he likes all games basically, and then Neilan, the orange tank, is more of a Euro style gamer, like some solo gaming, and so that discord between us, I think, helps people arrive at whether they're going to like a game or not, because. We have seriously gotten emails asking, like, how are you guys even friends? And
Really?
yeah, because and I think you can tell that there's love underneath it all. But it does get heated enough that we sometimes stop the recording and say, "Hey, are we okay? Do we want to go on a walk and hug each other?"
You need a campfire in the
Yeah.
middle of the room, basically. Something like that. A
no.
drum, stripped down to the waist. That kind of business. That'll kind of work a treat for you. If people if they've listened then and said, right, okay, I want to give this a shot, and they want to find you on the internet webs, where do we find you on the internet webs, Kalen?
BoardGameBarrage.com. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, Board Game Barrage. We also, like I mentioned, have a cool chat room, a Discord where people can come, and that link is also on our website, BoardGameBarrage.com. We're on iTunes, Spotify, basically anywhere. We have a fairly popular. We've made like 5 videos on YouTube, and those are our top 50 games of all time list that we did over Christmas.
Yeah,
and so the top 10 games our YouTube video has, I think, over 4,000 views. So that's insane.
that's pretty good.
And so that's a good entry point if you want something really familiar, like, well, what are these guys about? And you'll find we actually have a lot more party games on that list than I have. Colorado in my top 10 games of all time, which is not a party game, but it's super light. So we each have different preferences, but I think that makes for a really good show. I'd encourage you to check it out if I haven't put you off.
Make your own decision on that, people. Don't let them try and persuade you otherwise. It's definitely worth a listen.
I've never listened to your podcast, so I don't know what you're selling.
I have no idea. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet webs, search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Facebook. You'll find us on our website, which is we'renotwizards.com. You'll find some written stuff on our blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. We've got Instagram, which is We're Not Wizards, as if you search under Instagram. Don't go to Twitter. It's fucked.
You're a Twitter champion right now, man. 5 million people.
5 million people.
You're the guy.
I'm not the guy, because it's like, it translates down to, do you know what a viral tweet does for you?
I have no idea.
It just means your phone buzzes all the time. That's all it means. It hasn't necessarily done anything for us.
Your phone battery is running out faster than it should.
My phone wants a divorce, basically. I'm expecting some kind of email solicitor's letter. It's been very, very interesting to kind of to put something out there at something stupid o'clock on a Monday morning and then have everybody go, yes, I totally understand what you're talking about. And I'm like going, well, I didn't know what I was talking about. So thanks for that. Anyway, so it's good fun. But you can go to Twitter. It's dying down now anyway. It's fine. We're not wizards.twitter.com. Remember, do your first thing or whatever. I don't know. I can't even. I've seen it so many times, and people are nicking it and sticking it on Facebook and claiming it as their own, which I find highly ironic. That somebody has actually stolen something that says go out there and create your own content, and they're now stealing yours and put it on, and then said, "Yeah, this is my content." It's like, you're an asshole. Why would you do that?
That was my hungover tweet that you're stealing from me.
I know. I wasn't even drinking. I had like 2 cups of coffee, and I was like kind of like still half asleep. But anyway, I might kind of cut this all out because it's a sad little look at me. No. Poor little madman. If you do like what you've listened to tonight, my word, bless you. You can go to you can find us on all the different podcast catchers like your Stitcher and Spreaker and your Acast and your Podknife and your Podbean and anything with pod and anything with cast in it. Yeah, and you'll find us. Spotify has not got pod or cast in it, but you can find us on Spotify. Isn't that glorious? If you like even more what you've listened to tonight, if you jump onto Apple Podcasts, and you can leave us a rating or a review and a subscription. If you leave us a subscription, that would be fantastic. If you subscribe to the Board Game Barrage, or whatever they're called, however you pronounce it, there you go. You know, you can pronounce it that way, or you can pronounce it Barrage or Barrage, which is the correct way to pronounce it. Drop them as a subscription as well. If you like what you listen to when you listen to them for the first time, remember, maybe don't give them or us kind of 10 stars, because I don't want to be big-headed, and having spoken to Kalen, he definitely should not be any bigger-headed with his opinions than he already is. But at the same time...
Wow. Shots fired.
At the same time, right, he's quite new to this venture, so we don't want to insult him. So don't give him 1 star, because that would be cruel. Just, give him something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average. I'm not saying they're average, but I'll leave it up to you to decide. I don't think he's average at all. He's been rather wonderful. He's been rather fantastic. It's Kalen Allen from the board game Barrage. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. That was fun.
There is only a couple more things to do, and the first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Kalen?
I mean, you said I had a big head, so I'm going to go with... I
never said you had a big head.
You literally just said that.
Not in kind of like the size mind, as in kind of like, an inflated ego. I'm digging myself a horrible pit.
I'd like to be a wizard, so yes, I claim wizardry.
Such a disappointment right at the end. Don't know how to come back from this.
I think we just got to cut it out, because...
I think
Yeah, hang up.
Burn them. And the other thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Kalen. Say goodbye, Kalen, you huge disappointment of a man.
So long. Yeah.
And it's a goodbye. It's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and yeah, go and check out, give them a shout, help the guys out. It should be a lot of fun. They are a lot of fun. It's good when they're screaming at each other. It reminds you of when you were 8 years old and your parents are downstairs arguing about who bought the wrong yogurt. So there you go. But until the next time, goodbye.
Bye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.